Order. I now call the Prime Minister to make a statement. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, before I begin, I'm sure the whole House will join me in sending our deepest condolences to the families and friends of James Furlong, Joe Ritchie Bennett and David Wales, who were brutally killed in Reading on Saturday. To assault defenceless people in a park is not simply an act of wickedness, but abject cowardice, and we will never yield to those who would seek to destroy our way of life. Mr. Speaker, with permission, I will update the House on the next steps in our plan to rebuild our economy and reopen our society, while waging our struggle against Covid-19. From the outset, we have trusted in the common sense and perseverance of the British people, and their response has more than justified our faith. Since I set out our plan on the 11th of May, we have been clear that our cautious relaxation of the guidance is entirely conditional on our continued defeat of the virus. In the first half of May, nearly 69,000 people tested positive for Covid-19 across the UK. By the first half of June, that total had fallen by nearly 70% to just under 22,000. The number of new infections is now declining by between 2 and 4% every day. 4 weeks ago, an average of 1 in 400 people in the community in England had Covid-19. In the first half of June, this figure was 1 in 1,700. We created a human shield around the NHS, and in turn, our doctors and nurses have protected us. And together, we have saved our hospitals from being overwhelmed. On the 11th of May, 1,073 people were admitted to hospital in England, Wales and Northern Ireland with Covid-19. By the 20th of June, this had fallen by 74% to 283. This pandemic has inflicted permanent scars, and we mourn everyone we have lost. Measured by a 7-day rolling average, the number of daily deaths peaked at 943 on the 14th of April. On the 11th of May, it was 476, and yesterday, the rolling average stood at 130. We've ordered over 2.2 billion items of protective equipment from UK-based manufacturers, many of whose production lines have been called into being to serve this new demand. And yesterday we conducted or posted 139,659 tests, bringing the total to over 8 million. And while we remain vigilant, we do not believe there is currently a risk of a second peak of infections that might overwhelm the NHS. Taking everything together, we continue to meet our 5 tests, and the chief medical officers of all 4 home nations have downgraded the UK's COVID alert level from 4 to 3, meaning we no longer face a virus spreading exponentially, though it remains in general circulation. The administrations in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland hold responsibility for their own lockdown restrictions, and they will respond to the united view of the chief medical officers at their own pace, based on their own judgment. But all parts of the UK are now travelling in the same direction, and we will continue to work together to ensure that everyone in our country gets the support they need. Thanks to our progress, we can now go further and safely ease the lockdown in England. At every stage, caution will remain our watchword, and each step will be conditional and reversible. Mr. Speaker, given the significant fall in the prevalence of the virus, we can change the 2-metre social distancing rule from the 4th of July. I know this rule effectively makes life impossible for large parts of our economy, even without other restrictions. For example, it prevents all but a fraction of our hospitality industry from operating. That's why almost 2 weeks ago I asked our experts to conduct a review, and I will place a summary of their conclusions in the libraries of both houses this week. Where it is possible to keep 2 metres apart, people should. But where it is not, we will advise people to keep a social distance of 1 metre plus, meaning they should remain 1 metre apart while taking mitigations to reduce the risk of transmission. And we are today publishing guidance on how business can reduce the risk by taking certain steps to protect workers and customers, and these include, for instance, avoiding face-to-face seating by changing office layouts, reducing the number of people in enclosed spaces, improving ventilation, using protective screens and face coverings, closing non-essential social spaces, providing hand sanitizer, changing shift patterns so that staff work in set teams. And of course, we already mandate face coverings on public transport. While the experts cannot give a precise assessment of how much the risk is reduced, they judge these mitigations would make 1 metre plus broadly equivalent to the risk at 2 metres if those mitigations are fully implemented. So either will be acceptable and our guidance will change accordingly. And this vital change enables the next stage of our plan to ease the lockdown. And Mr. Speaker, I'm acutely conscious that people will ask legitimate questions about why certain activities are allowed and others are not. And I must ask the House to understand that the virus has no interest in these debates. Its only interest, its only ambition is to exploit any opportunities to recapture ground that we might carelessly vacate and to reinfect our communities. And so there is only one certainty: the fewer social contacts you have, the safer you will be. And my duty, our duty as the government, is to guide the British people, balancing our overriding aim of controlling the virus against our natural desire to bring back normal life. We cannot lift all the restrictions at once, so we have to make difficult judgments. And every step is scrupulously weighed against the evidence. Our principle is to trust the British public to use their common sense in the full knowledge of the risks, remembering that the more we open up, the more vigilant we will need to be. From now on, we will ask people to follow guidance on social contact instead of legislation. In that spirit, we advise that from the 4th of July, 2 households of any size should be able to meet in any setting, inside or out. That does not mean they must always be the same 2 households. It will be possible, for instance, to meet one set of grandparents one weekend, the others the following weekend. But we are not recommending meetings of multiple households indoors because of the risks of creating greater chains of transmission. Outside, the guidance remains that people from several households can meet in groups of up to 6, and it follows that 2 households can also meet regardless of size. Mr. Speaker, I can tell the House that we will also reopen restaurants and pubs. Hallelujah. All hospitality indoors will be limited to table service and our guidance will encourage minimal staff and customer contact. We will ask businesses to help NHS Test and Trace respond to any local outbreaks by collecting contact details from customers, as happens in other countries, and we will work with the sector to make this manageable. Almost as eagerly awaited as a pint will be a haircut, particularly by me, Mr. Speaker, and so we will reopen hairdressers with appropriate precautions, including the use of visors. We also intend to allow some other close contact services, such as nail bars, to reopen as soon as we can when we're confident they can operate in a COVID-secure way. From the 4th of July, provided that no more than 2 households stay together, people will be free to stay overnight in self-contained accommodation, including hotels and bed and breakfasts, as well as campsites, as long as shared facilities are kept clean. Most leisure facilities and tourist attractions will reopen if they can do so safely, including outdoor gyms and playgrounds, cinemas, museums, galleries, theme parks and arcades, as well as libraries, social clubs and community centres. Close proximity venues, such as nightclubs, soft play areas, indoor gyms, swimming pools and spas will, I'm afraid, need to remain closed for now, as will bowling alleys and water parks. But my right honourable friends, the Business and Culture Secretaries, will establish task forces with public health experts and these sectors to help them become COVID secure and reopen as soon as possible. We will also work with the arts industry on specific guidance to enable choirs, orchestras and theatres to resume live performances as soon as possible. Recreation and sport will be allowed, but indoor facilities, including changing rooms and courts, will remain closed, and people should only play close contact team sports with members of their household. Mr. Speaker, I know that many have mourned the closure of places of worship, and this year Easter, Passover and Eid all occurred during the lockdown. So I'm delighted that places of worship will be able to reopen for prayer and services, including weddings with a maximum of 30 people, all subject to social distancing. Meanwhile, our courts, probation services, police stations and other public services will increasingly resume face-to-face proceedings. Wraparound care for school-aged children and formal childcare will restart over the summer. Primary and secondary education will recommence in September with full attendance, and those children who can already go to school should do so because it is safe, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we will publish COVID-secure guidelines for every sector that is reopening, and slowly but surely these measures will restore a sense of normality. After the toughest restrictions in peacetime history, we are now able to make life easier for people to see more of their friends and families, and to help businesses get back on their feet and get people back into work. But the virus has not gone away. We will continue to monitor the data with the Joint Biosecurity Centre and our ever more effective test and trace system. And I must be clear to the House that, as we have seen in other countries, there will be flare-ups for which local measures will be needed. And we will not hesitate to apply the brakes and reintroduce restrictions, even at national level, if required. So I urge everyone to stay alert, control the virus and save lives. Let's keep washing our hands, staying 2 metres apart wherever feasible, mitigating the risks at 1 metre where not, avoiding public transport where possible, wearing a mask when you have to use public transport, getting tested immediately if you have symptoms, self-isolating if instructed to do so by NHS Test and Trace. Today, we can say that our long national hibernation is beginning to come to an end, and life is returning to our streets and to our shops. The bustle is starting to come back, and a new but cautious optimism is palpable. But I must say to the House, it would be all too easy for that frost to return. And that is why we will continue to trust in the common sense and the community spirit of the British people to follow this guidance, to carry us through and to see us to victory over this virus. And I commend, Mr. Speaker, this statement to the House.
I now call the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Can I thank the Prime Minister for advance sight of his statement? And can I join the Prime Minister in sending our condolences to the families and friends of those who died and were injured in Reading on Saturday? This was a truly appalling attack, and I want to extend our thanks to the police officers and members of the public who showed incredible bravery in response. I spoke to my honourable friend for Reading East at the weekend, and I'm sure I speak for the whole House in saying to the people of Reading that we stand with them at this incredibly difficult time. Mr. Speaker, when I was elected leader of the Labour Party, I said I would offer constructive opposition with the courage to support the government where it is doing the right thing. We will, of course, scrutinise the details of this announcement. We will study the guidance, and there are obviously a number of questions that need to be answered. But overall, I welcome this statement. I believe the government is trying to do the right thing, and in that we will support them. Mr. Speaker, there are no easy decisions to be made here. Any unlocking carries risks. It has to be phased, managed and carefully planned. It needs to be based on scientific evidence, properly communicated, accompanied by robust track and trace systems, and there must be support for local councils and communities to respond quickly and decisively if there are any fresh outbreaks. But there are risks of inaction as well, of keeping businesses and schools closed, of keeping our economy closed, of keeping families apart, and we all need to recognise that today. I do have a number of questions about the basis for these decisions, which I hope the Prime Minister will address in a constructive way. First, the scientific evidence. I listened carefully to what he said about the 2 metre rule and the 1 metre rule. Can he assure the House that the package of measures is agreed by SAGE, the Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Scientific Officer? And what assessment has been made of the overall impact on transmission of the virus and on the R rate, both nationally and, of course, regionally? On the prevention of a second spike and reintroducing measures if needed, the Prime Minister knows local authorities will have to be central to that, but they need the resources and the powers. So what additional support is he providing to councils, and what new powers for swift local lockdown will be needed should there be a spike in infections? On protection of those working, particularly on the front line, we all want people to go back to work, but it has to be safe and standards have to be enforced. So what enforceable measures will the Prime Minister put in place to give confidence to those returning to work? And on support for businesses, these changes are necessary, but they will be complex, and many businesses have already spent thousands of pounds preparing to operate at 2 metres. These changes will be particularly felt by small businesses and on the high street. So what support can be given to them to address this? On the question of schools, I do think it's safe for some children to return to school, and I completely support that. The question is how quickly can we get all children back to school safely? The sooner, the better. It was the Education Secretary who told the House on the 9th of June that it would not be possible to bring all children back to school before the summer. And one of the reasons we support today's announcement is because it will make it more possible and easier to get children back to school quicker. We will support that, and my offer to work with the Prime Minister on this still stands. Mr. Speaker, finally on testing, track and trace, the Prime Minister will know that we've got very serious concerns about the gaps in the current system, including the absence of an app. Getting this right is essential to unlocking in a safe manner, and it's important the Prime Minister clarifies when the full track, trace and isolate system will be in place. Mr. Speaker, today is an important step in the fight against this virus. We will scrutinise the detail. We do want more clarity, but we welcome the thrust of this statement. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very grateful to the Right Honourable Gentleman for the spirit and the manner and the constructive way in which he has responded. And just on his points, may I just say that we do believe that all 5 tests have been met, as I said, and that means that the Chief Medical Officer, the Chief Scientific Advisor have been intimately involved in every stage of developing this programme, and they do believe that it is a programme that the step in our plan that allows us to go ahead whilst meeting that crucial test of not triggering a second wave. He asked about support for local councils, and I've said that we're putting in another 3.2 billion to support local councils, as well as 600 million to support their responsibilities for social care. But clearly, their responsibilities have not ended, and nor has our support ended. We will get this country through this crisis by doing everything it takes. And that takes me to his question about businesses. I don't think there's another country in the world that has done quite so much to support our workforce, to support our employees. The coronavirus job retention scheme, 11 million people supported, 2.6 million self-employed supported, 26 billion in bounce-back loans alone have been given out by this government, to say nothing of the huge support in grants. We're very confident that this is one of the most extraordinary packages to be provided by any government around the world, and we will continue to support our businesses. He mentions track and trace and isolate. And no country, yes, of course, it's perfectly true that it would be great to have an app, but no country currently has a functioning track and trace app. And the great success of NHS Test and Trace, is that, contrary to some of the scepticism that we heard, alas, from the opposite benches, it has so far not only contacted 87,000 people who have been in contact with those who have coronavirus, but they have elected voluntarily to self-isolate and stop the disease from spreading in the community. And that is a fantastic success by our NHS Test and Trace operation. And we will continue to develop and improve that test and trace operation so as to crack down on local outbreaks and enable our country to go forward. And may I finally say how welcome it was, Mr. Speaker, to hear from the Mr. Speaker, to hear from the Right Honourable Gentleman that he actively supports children now returning to school, and that he believes that returning to school is safe. I think he said that. I don't want to accuse him of a U-turn, Mr. Speaker. But there is more joy in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, and so on. It's great. It's good to have his support on that matter today, and I welcome the spirit and the manner in which he has responded to this statement today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With continuing relatively high rates of infection across Bedford Borough, I welcome the Prime Minister's balanced transition from over-reliance on regulation to greater reliance on the common sense of British businesses and employees. Will the Prime Minister now build on the exceptional programme of economic support provided to businesses with an ambitious acceleration of his levelling up programme, in particular drawing on the creativity and unlocking the creativity of our entrepreneurs, our small businesses and our innovators?
My honourable friend is absolutely on the money, on the point. He'll be hearing a lot more about exactly that, Mr. Speaker, in the course of the next couple of weeks, not only from me but also from my right honourable friend, the Chancellor.
We now go to Scotland with the Leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford. Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can I associate myself with the remarks of the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Labour Party at the outrage that took place on Saturday in Reading? Our thoughts are very much with the family and friends of James Furlong, of Joe Ritchie Bennett and David Wales. And of course we give grateful thanks to all our emergency services for the work that they continue to do. And on this day, perhaps, Mr. Speaker, if we can also just acknowledge the sad death of Harry Smith, the ex-political reporter for ITV and Scottish television, someone who will be sadly missed. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by thanking the Prime Minister for advance copy of his statement. Today's announcement will be understandably welcomed by many. But for every word of welcome, there must follow words of caution. The virus has not gone away. The margins for ensuring the virus does not take off again remain tight. Keeping people safe remains the first priority. We cannot put a price on human life. China and Germany are right now dealing with spikes in cases as a result of significant outbreaks. Health officials in South Korea have said they think the country is now experiencing a second wave. A similar experience here would amount to not just a health disaster, but an economic disaster. It would wipe out all the hard-won progress, all the self-sacrifice over recent months. It is vital that our collective efforts remain focused on preventing the disaster of a second spike. We must remain cautious too, because the public are now well used to hearing grand announcements from this Prime Minister, only for a U-turn to follow days or weeks later. Not only has this UK government wasted precious time on introducing a botched test and trace system, but they've wasted millions of taxpayers' money in the process too. Mr. Speaker, that is why it is essential that the next steps are solely directed by the science rather than by political pressures. So can the Prime Minister confirm that he will publish not just the conclusions, but the full review on social distancing measures and the scientific advice given? We know that a review of quarantining measures following foreign travel is due next week. Will the Prime Minister confirm that the introduction of any air bridges will be based on public health assessments, not economic assessments? And can he also confirm that the devolved governments will be closely involved and party to any arrangements with any country on air bridges? And finally, Mr. Speaker, to maintain full clarity, will the Prime Minister reaffirm that the announcements that he is making today are solely for England, and that the citizens of Northern Ireland, of Wales and Scotland should continue to follow public health advice from their own governments?
Mr. Speaker, indeed, well, on that last point, of course, I can confirm that, as indeed I said in my statement, though I observe that the harmony between all four home nations is, in fact, much closer than you might sometimes believe from listening to the right honourable gentleman. But I agreed, I must say, with a great deal of what he had to say. Because he's right, Mr. Speaker, to express the caution that he does. He's right to anticipate the risk of second spikes, and that is that I'm afraid that we will see future outbreaks. And I must be absolutely clear with the House about that. We will see future outbreaks, and we will be in a much better position now to control those outbreaks. I will, of course, publish the measures on social distancing, how the decision was reached on social distancing. I said we'll place that in both libraries of the House. And Mr. Speaker, he had one more question, which I'm afraid I can't remember. What was it about public health? I can't remember. I will write to the. Air bridges. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry. Air bridges. He asked an important question about air bridges, and we will ensure that, of course, the devolved administrations are kept in close contact as we develop our plans, and they will be based. Our plans for quarantine will be based, of course, entirely, as he rightly suggests, on public health. That will be our criterion, and we will not be led by any excessive desire to risk public life, risk life by opening up the economy too fast. We will have a policy on air bridges that is based on public health, as he rightly says.
Bill Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much welcome the changes my right honourable friend has just announced on the 2-metre rule, which is great news for pubs and restaurants such as the Moat House in Staffordshire Bill that are at the heart of the community in Staffordshire. But can he give me assurances that as we move to 1 metre plus, that it will be safe for us to trust in the common sense of the British people to reduce transmission? And can I take this opportunity to invite the Prime Minister to have a pint in my constituency?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend. I'm very happy to take up her invitation. Thank you.
David.
Can I join the Prime Minister in sending our condolences to the family and friends of the appalling attacks in Reading? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister wants to reassure us that the lockdown can be safely eased, while rightly warning that there is a danger of a second wave of coronavirus later this year. If he's right, though, and there's a breathing space now, surely it's urgent that we learn the lessons. So can I ask the Prime Minister again, will he urgently set up an independent inquiry into the government's handling of this pandemic?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure there will come a moment when lessons need to be learned. We're learning them indeed the whole time, but I do not consider at the moment that a full-scale national inquiry is a good use of official time.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. I warmly welcome the Prime Minister's statement, which reflects very closely the advice that my select committee has taken. The Prime Minister has a new advisory group, and I'm glad of it, because the best role for SAGE is on broad questions of science rather than every little minute policy. But can he now specify from his statement whether the ban on cricket has come to an end? Cricket is perhaps our most socially distanced team sport. We've lost half the summer, but there is another half left to be enjoyed by players and spectators alike.
Mr. Speaker, I'm really grateful to my right honourable friend, and this goes to the point that I was trying to make to the House earlier, because everybody will want to add something on to the great wheelbarrow of measures that we're making, and at a certain point there will come a straw that breaks the camel's back. The problem with cricket is everybody understands that the ball is a natural vector of disease, potentially at any rate, and we've been round it many times with our scientific friends. At the moment, we're still working on ways to make cricket more COVID secure, but we can't change the guidance yet.
Jeffrey Donalds.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could I echo the comments in relation to the victims of the terrible atrocity in Reading, and our thoughts are with their families. I also support the Prime Minister's contention that the need for a four-nation approach is very important. And in that context, will the Prime Minister commit to share the rationale, data, scientific evidence and advice upon which these decisions are based with the Northern Ireland Executive, with our Chief Medical Officer and Chief Scientific Advisor, to ensure that we continue to have this coordinated approach going forward?
Mr. Speaker, as I've informed the House, the four CMOs, Chief Medical Officers of all former home nations, were unanimous in their view that the alert level should go down from 4 to 3, and we will continue to work together as we have and to share information as we go forward.
Sarah Britton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This news will be a relief for so many pub owners in Hanburn and Haslingden, whether that be the Green Squirrel or the Haze. And the relaxation of the 2-metre rule will make it that little bit easier for micropubs, such as the Vault, Hustle Bar and the Nusden Tap. But can the Prime Minister assure me that the Government will work closely with local authorities so that pubs and restaurants may be able to utilise their outdoor space, and will he visit Hyndburn Hazard?
I will, Mr. Speaker. There's hardly any area of the country that I don't intend to visit in the course of the reopening of the pubs and hostelries of this country. And I think there's a massive opportunity now for our pubs, with all their inventiveness, to think of ways of making their businesses COVID secure, exploiting outdoor spaces, hitherto unloved, unvalued outdoor spaces that may become havens for tables and chairs. That's right, and to use their ingenuity to open up in all the ways that they can.
We now come to Liz Saville-Roberts.
People crave confidence and competence, Mr. Speaker. With England's so-called well-beating app scrapped before it even launched, contact tracers unable to reach a third of positive cases, and no financial support, no financial scheme to support workers when public health requires them to self-isolate, what assessment has he made of the risks to business and public confidence if local lockdowns or a second peak prove beyond his government's ability to manage?
Mr. Speaker, as the right honourable lady knows very, very well, that this government has invested record sums in protecting business. By comparison, any other country, we've done more to protect businesses around the whole of the country, including in Wales. I may say that I said that we're proceeding as one UK, and we are. I have my doubts, Mr. Speaker, I must say, about the 5-mile rule in Wales, and wonder whether that might be something that was reviewed. But she makes a very important point about the need to protect against a second outbreak and to make sure that we are in good shape to crack down on flare-ups, and I believe we are, and I believe to an extent that perhaps we didn't think possible a month ago. We are able to do local whack-a-mole in the way that she describes.
Mr. Speaker, can I congratulate my right honourable friend? This announcement, particularly the reductions of the distancing rule, itself will save hundreds of thousands of jobs, so he's already done a good day's work today. Can I ask him to ensure the practicality of future guidance? Complex rules about who can do what and where and when they can do it may seem rational when discussed around a table in Whitehall, but if they're too complex and too unclear, people won't obey them. So can he make sure that the rules for the future are as clear and simple and understandable as possible?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is entirely right. The difficulty, a message like stay at home, protect the NHS, it's very simple. Everybody can see what they have to do. Getting into the easing of the lockdown is much more complex, but I think that the guidance we've set out today is intelligible. I think people will understand what they need to do. The British people have shown massive common sense so far. I'm sure they're going to continue to do so.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Last week in my constituency in Cleckheaton, we had a Covid-19 outbreak in a meat processing factory. Kirklees Council acted swiftly and efficiently. My concern is with the government's easing of lockdown, we will see these localised outbreaks, and with the Health and Safety Executive having their budget cut by 50% since 2010, can the government ensure that Kirklees and other councils will have all the money they need to keep our communities safe? And also, what investigations are going ahead from government to look at why meat processing particularly is exposed to Covid-19 outbreaks, not just here and in this country and around the world, so we can keep those members of staff safe?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we're certainly looking into what's happening to meat processing, and she's right to draw attention to that phenomenon. We've seen it in Anglesey, we've seen it in Germany. We need to get to the bottom of what is happening. We're putting more into health and safety executive, as she knows. Another £14 million we're giving to bolster our health and safety executive, and local councils will be fortified in implementing local lockdowns by central government, by the Joint Biosecurity Centre, so that we are able to crack down very, very efficiently on these flare-ups as they happen.
Mr. Speaker, going to the pub is a great British institution and vital if we want to get our economy back on track. Will the Prime Minister therefore join me in calling on people from the 4th of July to do their patriotic best for Britain and go to the pub?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I do encourage people to take advantage of the freedoms that they are rightly reacquiring, but I must stress that people should act in a responsible way, and I know that that is where the public are. I know that that is what people want to see. They want to see this reopening happening gradually. They want to see the frost leaving the tundra slowly. They understand the risks that we still face. And so, yes, I want to see people out in the shops. It's a fantastic thing to see. Yes, I want to see people taking advantage of hospitality. Again, a wonderful thing. Yes, I want to see people enjoying friends and family. Again, but they've got to do it in a responsible way and observing social distancing.
Going to Scotland with Ronnie Cowan. Ronnie Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we attempt to move people back into the workplace, the job retention scheme is being abused by some companies to make employees redundant before August, when employers would have to pay a percentage of their salary. Moreover, others like British Airways are threatening to fire tens of thousands of loyal workers and rehire them, some on slashed pay and poorer conditions. Prime Minister, you said you were looking at what we can do, so you back my colleague, the member for Paisley in North Renfrewshire, whose dismissal and unemployment fire and rehire bill addresses this iniquity.
Minister. Mr. Speaker, I will of course study the bill to which the honourable gentleman alludes, but I will study it. I will cause it to be studied. Mr. Speaker, I can tell him that he knows very well that this country has given unprecedented and unequalled support to workers and to businesses. I think 1 million companies have taken advantage of the job retention scheme. 1 million companies, 2.6 million self-employed people. There's nothing like it around the world. I think we should be very proud of what the UK has done, and we will continue to ensure that no one is penalised for doing the right thing to beat this virus.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my right honourable friend has said, the primary aim of policy was to stop the NHS being swamped, and that was met, which is a great achievement. But will he take the opportunity today to restate that in the absence of a vaccine or a cure, this virus will stay in circulation, and what people refer to as a second wave is in fact a continuation of the first wave. It has not gone away. And we can expect flare-ups, as we have in Germany, and while the measures today are welcome, which incidentally give a whole new meaning to safe drinking, their observation will be vital if we are to avoid a widespread second lockdown, which would be an economic and social disaster for the country.
Prime Minister. That's absolutely right, Mr. Speaker. I think there have been two important changes in our arsenal in the last 6 weeks or so. The first has obviously been NHS test and trace, which is getting better the whole time and is invaluable in fighting the disease. But the second is the treatments. And dexamethasone, which was tested in this country, really does make a big difference to the mortality of the disease. And I've no doubt that other progress will be made. He's right to be, I think, reserved about the possibilities of getting a full vaccine. That is going to be very difficult. But in the meantime, we will have to remain extremely vigilant and extremely cautious.
We're going to Belfast South with Claire Hanna. Claire Hanna.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, today, despite a strong test and trace regime, a region in Germany had to impose a specific lockdown on several 100,000 people due to a dangerously high R number. And we know that, unfortunately, while we're progressing, we're only at the end of the beginning of our restrictions. You're right to say that the job retention and self-employed scheme have been vital to many people. And I want to ask, what contingency do you have in place for ad hoc localised lockdowns that may be required? And will you roll out localised versions of job retention schemes for those areas?
Mr. Speaker, I thank the Honourable Leader. Really repeat my last answer. We don't want to see anybody penalised for doing the right thing.
16 withdrawn. Daniel Sackner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are approximately 1 million 16 to 18-year-olds in England, and some 700,000 study in colleges. Astonishingly, this week's education catch-up plan omitted those colleges, including many in my constituency of Cambridge. Can the Prime Minister explain the government's thinking behind this, and will he sort it out?
Mr. Speaker, we will of course do everything we can to ensure that not just our schools but also our colleges get the attention that they need. As he knows, there is massive investment now going into the rebuilding of FE colleges and to ensuring that our FE sector gets the investment it deserves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I warmly welcome the news from the Prime Minister regarding the tourism sector, which will be especially well received in East Devon, and of course he's more than welcome to visit any time. Can the Prime Minister confirm the government will publish full guidance to ensure businesses can keep themselves and their customers safe whilst keeping the virus under control?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker, and the guidance, as I say, will be published later on today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has highlighted examples around the world where restrictions have been relaxed and where there has been a subsequent resurgence of the virus, and he has said that he will not hesitate to reintroduce restrictions if required. I would just like to get an unambiguous commitment from him in terms of not seeing anyone penalised for doing the right thing to combat this virus. If it is necessary to continue with the furlough and self-employment support schemes beyond October, will his government do so?
Mr. Speaker, we've said what we've said about the furloughing scheme. It's our intention, obviously, to make sure that we're not in a situation where we have to keep those national schemes going. That's why the furlough scheme is tapering off in October. But clearly, if there are I've said what I've said, if there are localised outbreaks, or indeed if it is nationally necessary to put the brakes back on, then nobody should be penalised for doing the right thing.
Andrew Letson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the last few weeks, we've seen a real outpouring of love and kindness across our communities, across the country, for our older citizens. And that's quite right. But we haven't seen the same thing for our youngest citizens. So can the Prime Minister tell me what the government is doing for those who have had a baby during lockdown, or indeed who are struggling to cope, as he might be, with the challenge of having a new baby and with so little face-to-face support?
Thank you. Well, I'm grateful to my right honourable friend. I'm personally coping fine, thank you. But well, thank you. But what we are doing, as you would have heard in my statement, is where wraparound childcare is coming back for the summer. And as she knows, early years is open, reception is open, and wouldn't it be a fine thing to hear from the party opposite that it's safe for all the young kids to go back?
Heading to South London with Vicky Foxcroft. Vicky Foxcroft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning, I met with Disability Rights UK, who are worried that support for shielded people is being removed too quickly. In their words, if government can be sensitive to business until October, why can't they be sensitive to personal needs? Now, throughout this crisis, communication with shielded and disabled people has been poor. Will he commit to working closely with these groups to ensure clearer, more regular communication as we move out of lockdown and towards planning for a second wave?
Well, yes, Mr. Speaker, she raises a very important point. In fact, we've extended the shielding programme, as you know, Mr. Speaker, till the end of July. 3 million food parcels have already been delivered to shielded people. What we want to see is a situation in which the prevalence, the incidence is so low that the shielding programme no longer needs to continue in its current way. And I think that should be a shared ambition around the House and around the country. Too many elderly, vulnerable people have been kept in close confinement for too long, and we must help them to a new way out.
Richard Graham.
Mr Speaker, this statement paves the way for Britain to bounce back, with most of the hospitality sector reopening, and gives us more confidence for the 10th anniversary of the Gloucester History Festival in September. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that while many of us want to see cricket played again safely, air bridges established as soon as possible, the absolutely crucial goal is for all children and pupils and students at FE colleges and universities to be able to go back to school, college and university in the autumn absolutely safely?
Absolutely, Mr Speaker, and a point I perhaps could have made to the right honourable, the honourable gentleman who's I think no longer in his seat. It is our intention to get not just schools but FE colleges back as well in September, and get our young people back where they need to be in education and preparing for their future.
Anna McMorran.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It seems the Prime Minister has given up working with all four nations. COBRA hasn't met for weeks and daily communications have ended. And I'm pretty sure the First Minister for Wales has forgotten what the Prime Minister even looks like. Does he not believe that his actions are leading to a disjointed rather than united union? And given recent data suggests that the people of Wales have far more confidence in the Welsh Government's handling of this pandemic than the people of England do in his, should he not perhaps be following the strategy championed by the Labour Government of Wales?
Mr Speaker, I make no comment on the blessed amnesia that has descended on the First Minister of Wales, except to say that actually, when you look at the facts, when you look at what the UK is doing together, we are in much closer harmony than you would suspect from what she says. Perhaps one detail, one wrinkle to which I respectfully draw her attention is I'm not sure the 5-mile limit rule is entirely necessary, and perhaps that needs to be rethought.
We're 25 is withdrawn, so we're going down to Sir Gary Streeter. Sir Gary Streeter.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Speaker. Can I thank my right honourable friend for the clarity he has given to the hospitality and tourism sector in the Great South West today? But can he also give a glimmer of hope that the government will look sympathetically at more support over the winter, if necessary, to ensure that this very seasonal sector can survive such a restricted season? Thank you.
Prime Minister.
Yes, indeed, Mr Speaker. Though, as my right honourable friend already knows, we're doing a massive amount to support businesses of all kinds, particularly through getting rid of business rates for the whole of next year. But one thing I would say respectfully to all those who represent tourist areas of this country, now is the time perhaps to send out a welcoming signal to those from other parts of our country, and to roll out the welcome mat rather than the not welcome here sign. Something we could do together.
Kate.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My right honourable friend's announcement will be very welcome to hospitality businesses in Penistone and Stocksbridge who are keen to reopen after a difficult period. But many workers and business owners are parents as well, and they can't return to work until their children are back at school. So will my right honourable friend agree with me that for these businesses to recover, we need all children back at school in September? And can he also confirm that this announcement means that in the meantime, people can start to ask friends and families for help with childcare?
Yes.
Prime Minister.
Yes, Mr Speaker, it does mean that, but it also, we are committed, as she knows, to getting all our schools back in September, and I do believe that it will be possible, if we stick to this plan, if we stick to the guidance, to do it in a safe way.
Going to Scotland with Martin Day. Martin Day.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. We're witnessing that even countries like Germany with good control of Covid-19 are developing outbreaks which centre around meat processing plants. So what explanation has been given to the PM for this trend, and how on earth does he think it will be improved by cutting the safe distance from 2 metres to 1 metre?
Speaker, it's a very good question. We're looking at exactly what's happening in meat processing plants. There are currently, I think, two theories have been advanced to me. One about the cold environment in the plants, which may be propitious to the virus. The other is the possibility that staff are congregating in such a way as to spread the virus. We don't know what it is. We are investigating. But wherever these outbreaks take place, we will use local cluster-busting techniques to stamp them out.
Mr Graham Brady.
I warmly welcome the statement and strongly endorse the move to relying on common sense
and the responsibility of the British people from the 4th of July. The blanket quarantine proposal, however, is not common sense when it applies to countries which are entirely safe and have no coronavirus. Can I urge my right honourable friend to ensure that air bridges are in place no later than the 4th of July as well?
Mr. Speaker, the House will have heard what I've had to say about air bridges repeatedly since the quarantine announcement was made. We do understand the balance, but we also understand the vital necessity of protecting our country from reinfection from abroad. Every serious country that has got this disease under control has had to introduce quarantine for people coming back in to their country or coming into their country.
Ben Bradshaw.
A number of countries, Mr. Speaker, will be surprised by the Prime Minister's claim they don't have a functioning track and trace app. But why, given it is costing Britain thousands of jobs a day, millions of pounds a day, and has no basis in the science, why is he waiting another 2 weeks to scrap his disastrous blanket quarantine policy?
Mr. Speaker, I refer the right honourable gentleman to the answer I gave just now. We've got a very sensible policy. We do not wish to see our country reinfected after all the efforts of the British people by travellers coming in from abroad.
Peter Aldis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Marina and Seagull theatres in Lowestoft and the Fisher Theatre in Bungay played lead and irreplaceable roles in their local community and economies. I welcome the Prime Minister's statement that the government will work with the arts industry so that theatres can reopen as soon as possible. But, Mr. Speaker, they are really struggling, and can I urge the Prime Minister to look at putting in place specific support up until the time that viable reopening is possible?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. And I know how valuable the theatre sector, the whole entertainment sector is to our economy, and be in no doubt that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for DCMS, is talking right now to those sectors to see what we can do to help them whilst we ensure that they can come back in a COVID-secure way.
Heading up to Hull with Dame Diana Johnson. Dame Diana Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What's the public health message that the Prime Minister is conveying by opening pubs ahead of the full opening of schools?
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to the honourable lady. I think that most people will understand that we want as much of our business, as much of our economy to open as we can in a COVID-secure way. She will also understand that we want our schools to open in a safe way. That's why we've done what we've done. We've made the announcements that we've made. It's only been possible before the summer break to open to some classes. Alas, we're ahead of many other countries in Europe in doing that. There are other countries, as she will know, that are not opening any of their schools. But I must say I welcome the logic of what she is saying, because if she is now actively going to encourage kids to go back to school, Mr. Speaker, and stop the long silence of the benches opposite on this matter, then that would be a great thing.
Sir Desmond Swain.
Will he cause his experts to be worked night and day until they find the fix, and when they've got it, to straight away allow spas and nail bars to reopen? And when there are flare-ups, will he eschew the temptation to return to collective punishment?
Yes. A very, very good way of putting it, Mr. Speaker. We want, insofar as we possibly can, to confine our action to the localities where the flare-ups have happened, but that's why it's so vital that everybody listens to the balance of this guidance today, follows the guidance on 2 metres, on 1 metre plus, continues to observe social distancing, and will get this thing done.
Peter Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is good news that people can start socialising and meeting in public again. But what is he going to do to make sure that destination communities, such as the one I represent in Brighton and Hove, are extra safe? Because there will be people who will be meeting and drinking on places like the seafront and in parks where it will be impossible to get the names and addresses of every customer. There will be other pinch points where lots of people from various destinations will be rubbing up against each other. What will he do in the absence of the promised app to make sure that these communities are destination for investment and not destination for COVID?
I think I will be calling on local representatives, such as himself, to show some guts and determination and champion their communities as venues for people to return to and to support. And I think that he can do that with confidence because we are introducing, as I say, a sensible package of measures that allows businesses gradually to reopen whilst ensuring social distancing. And it's that mixture plus the NHS test and trace scheme that I believe allows us to go forward. So that is the formula that I believe works. And as for the issue of putting names behind the bar or registering in restaurants, I do think that is something that people get. And as far as possible, we want people to do that. We want businesses to comply with that. We believe it will be very, very important for our ability to track back and stop outbreaks happening. So I do think he should also encourage all his businesses to take the names of customers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I very much welcome the statement from the Prime Minister today, but the Prime Minister will be aware that my constituents will not get the benefit of the measures being announced today, as the First Minister of Scotland is delaying Scotland's release from lockdown. So does the Prime Minister agree with me that the First Minister should share the evidence as to justify why Scotland is taking a different approach from the rest of the United Kingdom?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend. He has his finger on the pulse. I was earlier informed that the First Minister of Scotland was about to make a statement, as she has done several times before, uncannily similar to the one that I have just given. But if I'm misinformed about that, I do think that it remains nonetheless the case that the similarities between our approaches greatly outweigh the differences.
Right.
The Prime Minister referred to support for local authorities. The Rhondda during this period has had 3 bouts of flooding, very severe, including last week. Many homes have lost absolutely everything because they have no insurance. And the local authority now faces a bill somewhere in the region of £67 million to repair culverts, drains, pumping stations and gullies, and to replace many bridges. In particular, we have a landslide from an old coal tip, which is in danger of doing very significant damage if we can't remove the 60,000 tonnes of earth. That is still a Westminster responsibility. Can he please, he may not have the answer now, but can he please make sure that we get the £2.5 million very swiftly so we can do that work very quickly? We don't want another Aberfan.
The right honourable gentleman is absolutely right, and I'm aware of those risks. We are working with Mark Draper, with the Welsh government on those problems. As he knows, we're putting £4 billion into flood defences. One thing that I think we will be able to do is, if we face, which I've no doubt we will, real problems of underemployment, unemployment, getting to work on putting in better flood defences for the future will be an important way of driving job creation. Of course.
Colin Monbycroft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My right honourable friend will know that many people have been unable to attend routine hospital appointments throughout the lockdown, and the reasons for that are many and varied. Will he tell me, moving forward as the lockdown eases, what measures can be put in place to support hospital trusts as they work hard to catch up? And can he tell me if he will work with me to secure an upgrade to Scunthorpe Hospital, which is needed now more than ever before? Thank you.
Well, I congratulate my honourable friend on the way she represents her constituency, and we will do whatever we can for Scunthorpe Hospital. I've no doubt that it's on one of my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Health, lists, where we are investing, as she knows, record sums, £34 billion into the NHS, the biggest ever cash boost for the NHS. We're going to do 40 new hospitals. That remains an undimmed ambition. If anything, we're going to double down on our ambitions for the NHS, and so she should watch this space, particularly as regards Scunthorpe Hospital.
Heading to Greater Manchester with Debbie Abrahams. Debbie Abrahams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, published evidence indicates that indoor environments account for 97% of the spread of COVID across the world. The closer the contact and the greater the length of time of contact, the greater the risk of virus transmission. SAGE has said that the evidence indicates that it's inappropriate to reduce social distancing at this stage of the infection, typically over 1,000 new COVID cases a day. Rather than the Prime Minister making decisions behind closed doors on unpublished evidence, why won't he publish his exit strategy with threshold approaches on infections and wait until the test and isolate system is fully operational, as countries who have successfully emerged from lockdowns have done?
Well, I'm grateful to the Honourable Lady, but I must just repeat what I've said to the House several times now, that we will, of course, be putting the argumentation about the change in the 2 metre rule, the inflection in the 2 metre rule, the 1 metre plus, 2 metre or 1 metre plus rule in the libraries of both houses. And I must say that I'm not at one with her in her view of NHS test and trace. I think it's a massive achievement by this country. It's starting to work better and better, and I think will be indispensable to our future success.
Jones. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The operators of pubs, hotels and restaurants in England will be feeling considerably relieved by the Prime Minister's statement today, but that relief will not be shared in Wales, where hospitality is an enormously important part of the economy, and yet the Welsh Government have yet to make a statement of their own. This, of course, is legally the consequence of devolution, but the practical consequence is despair and frustration. So can my right honourable friend say what work the government is doing with the devolved administrations to try to secure a more uniform approach as we depart from the lockdown restrictions?
Well, Mr. Speaker, actually I should have said to the right honourable lady opposite, and I just say to my right honourable friend, actually we are in daily contact, or very, very regular contact, with all the devolved administrations, and we're in much more lockstep than you might think on the particular matter of hospitality in Wales. I hear him loud and clear, and I think that point will also be heard loud and clear in Cardiff when we look forward to hearing further announcements.
Mr. Carmichael. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If people are to take advantage of these freeing of restrictions, then they must have confidence in the judgment of the Prime Minister and those around him. He must surely realise that recent events have done some damage in that regard. If he wishes to repair some of that damage, will he end the much ridiculed quarantine period for people coming here from overseas?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, may I apologise to the right honourable gentleman for last week mistakenly believing him to be someone who wanted to break up our United Kingdom. I unreservedly withdraw that aspersion. I know that he and I want to keep our union together, but I must say to him on the quarantine issue, I do think that it's very sensible for this country to have measures in place to protect our population from vectors of disease coming back into the UK from abroad. That's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I assure the Prime Minister there will be a warm welcome for his measures today in Rugby, not only from the pubs and restaurants, but in particular from the town centre traders, because right now, in order to accommodate 2 metre social distancing, there are works underway to provide an unwelcome one-way system and the removal of on-street parking. The very welcome move to 1 metre on the 4th of July means that these measures will no longer be necessary, and it will be easier for customers to get into our town centre and spend money with our fantastic local retailers.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I would certainly encourage customers to go to the fantastic local retailers in Rugby, and I'm delighted that these measures today obviate the need for the cursed one-way system that he describes.
Florence Esheloni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do welcome this restriction easing up, and for a number of businesses across my constituency along the South Bank, including hospitality, leisure and culture sectors, they will see this as a step in the right direction, but it will still be hard for them. Businesses need to see that detailed guideline now. Research from the Federation of Small Business shows that the vast majority of small businesses say they would need to make changes in their premises for this to work, but there will be significant costs attached to that. What can the government do to support small restaurants, cafes, hairdressers and other small businesses employing 10 or less people whose balance sheets has been so impacted over the last few months? They need to make those necessary adjustments to make their staff and their customers safe.
Well, Mr. Speaker, businesses have been eligible, she knows, for £25,000 in grants. We've had the 11 million people supported under the coronavirus job retention scheme, huge amounts of money, the 26 billion in bounce back loans alone. We will support businesses large and small for the duration of this crisis. But the best way to get all the hairdressers, nail bars, all these businesses back on their feet as fast as possible is to make sure that we continue to depress the virus, keep it under control, keep the incidence down, and that way we'll go forward. Our vision for the country is to try to get back to normality for as many as possible, as fast as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I warmly welcome my right honourable friend's statement. I'm looking forward on the 4th of July to dropping in at the Wheat Sheaf in Ewell to thank them for moving from being a great hub of the local community to being a great virtual hub of the local community in the last few weeks. But my right honourable friend and I both represent a large number of people who work in the creative industries, and although today's announcement is very welcome, there are many parts of those industries that are still held back and will inevitably be for a period of time, like the exhibition sector, small theatres, Mr. Speaker. Can my right honourable friend assure me that he and the Chancellor and other ministers will continue to look at ways in which we can ease the pressure on what is one of our most essential sectors?
Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend is a great champion of those industries, and as I've said to colleagues already in the House, we're doing a huge amount to engage with them and to support them.
Going to Scotland with Chris Stevens. Chris Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister in his statement says he's keen to get people back into work, but we've also seen the benefits of home working, particularly in HMRC with staff who've went the extra mile to support business through the schemes. But the Prime Minister will be aware that HMRC have now launched a massive redundancy scheme which could affect 2,000 staff. So what message does the Prime Minister believe he's sending when he says that people should get back to work, but government departments want to put people out of work?
Mr. Speaker, I think that people have to work from home if they can. That remains the guidance, and of course it's up to employers and employees to decide whether they need to get back to work to their workplace to do their jobs. When it comes to the HMRC and the sad redundancies that he mentions, I will certainly look at that. Though I think that obviously it is also important to cut the cost of government.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and it will come no surprise to you that I wholly endorse the Prime Minister's announcement on the end of the hairdressing hibernation. And that's been made possible by the change to the social distancing rules, which will help hundreds of thousands of businesses across the country. But to help those businesses further, will my right honourable friend look at reducing VAT and national insurance contributions for employers, so that we're not just cutting hair, we're cutting taxes too?
Mr. Speaker, I will certainly look at all such measures, but I do not wish to anticipate anything that my right honourable friend the Chancellor may say.
Emma Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister will be aware, I'm sure, of the Deep in Hull, which is a landmark centre for marine research and the world's only submarium. Now, there was no mention of aquariums in his speech, though I did note that he talked about a task force. So when will this task force give reports? How quickly can we get the aquarium open? And in the meantime, if that can't happen, can he look at providing them extra specialised financial support?
Well, Mr. Speaker, she's heard what I've had to say. We will do everything we can to get all such venues, aquariums, seaquariums, open as fast as we possibly can, make them COVID compliant. I'm sure we can get there.
Julia Barson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People and businesses across Hertford and Stortford will rightly welcome the Prime Minister's announcement. Would my right honourable friend agree with me that we should also continue to support the development of new technologies and those already in use, such as apps and QR codes, which will help many companies, especially in the arts and technologies sector and the hospitality sector, to benefit from the measures he's outlined today?
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. And again, I appeal to I can rely on the incredible ingenuity of the arts sector, in every sector of the retail, hospitality sector, every sector of the economy, to use technology now to bank the changes and to make further progress in taking our economy forward and letting this country bounce back.
Lord Russell Boyle.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Look, I welcome the statement, and we've got. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Prime Minister for a welcome statement. It would be much better maybe if he was Prime Minister. Look, we've got a plethora. We have a plethora of small businesses in Brighton, and I've just spoken to our LGBT businesses with GC and our LGBT magazine. They are keen, particularly the bars and business clubs, to get open. But they are worried at the moment that the furlough scheme, rightly, has closed for new entrants coming up this month, and will allow part-time working, but won't allow people to come off furlough to see whether the business is viable and then for them to be put back on. Will the Prime Minister consider some flexibility for, say, a 2-week trial and them to be put back on furlough for the remainder of furlough so businesses can try out the water? Otherwise, many of them say they will just stay shut completely, and that would be a real disappointment.
I hope actually that businesses will recognise that now is the moment to get going, to get their valued staff back working again, doing what they want to do, what they love doing, and I've no doubt that all the bars in Brighton have every reason to be confident, provided we do this in a sensible way. And I think everybody in the House understands the balance of what we're trying to do today, and I hope everybody can join together in expressing that balance to the public.
Heading to lovely Lancashire with Mark Menzies. Mark Menzies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it is lovely Lancashire. Mr. Speaker, can I welcome the measures that the Prime Minister has announced today, which will be a real boost to the visitor economy? And other members have invited the Prime Minister to come for a drink to their constituency. Can he come to Fylde to get his hair cut? And while he's here, he will have an opportunity to realise why it's very important, as part of the levelling up agenda, we give the green light to projects such as the Lytham St Anne's M55 Link Road, which will ensure that the visitor economies of areas like Fylde are connected and well served for years to come.
Minister, Kelly will be upset.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure I can wait till I get to Fylde to have my hair cut, but I will tell him certainly that his appeal for the M55 Link Road is well judged and has been heard by the government benches, and of course he should look forward to the further steps in the infrastructure revolution that will be unveiling.
Heading over the border to Greater Manchester with Lucy Powell. Lucy Powell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Hairdressers, restaurants and pubs in Manchester will warmly welcome today's announcement. If he doesn't mind, I won't follow suit with others and invite him to join me for a drink in one of them. He will be aware, though, that 80% of the more than 3 million people that work in hospitality and leisure are currently furloughed. So can he tell me how he expects businesses like gyms, nightclubs, theatres and others that have got to remain closed, how they can contribute towards that furlough scheme at the beginning of August without causing mass redundancies?
Mr. Speaker, that's why we've set up the various task forces that we have to ensure that we work with everybody in the sectors to enable them to open as fast as possible in a COVID-compliant way. That's our ambition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This announcement will be warmly welcomed by the pubs, restaurants, holiday parks and attractions that, along with the stunning coastline, make North West Norfolk the ideal place to visit and take a staycation. But alongside these measures, does my right honourable friend agree that Hunstanton and other coastal areas in Norfolk need to benefit from investment in our levelling up agenda so they can bounce back for the long term?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to be doing a huge amount for coastal communities that have been left behind, as he knows. But one thing I think we can all do now is ensure that we send out a very positive and welcoming message from coastal communities around the UK. Now is the time, folks, to have a staycation in the UK, Hunstanton or elsewhere.
Catherine West.
Mr. Speaker, the fastest growing languages in Hornsey and Wood Green are Mandarin Chinese and Latin American Spanish. The diversity within Hornsey and Wood Green is a real strength. They even chose an Australian-speaking MP. But my question is serious. What personal steps will the Prime Minister take to stop black and minority ethnic communities getting COVID so that we can save more lives in the next few months? It's been a really tragic few months for my constituency.
Well, I thank the honourable lady, and she's absolutely right to raise the point that she does, and what she will have heard is that we want enhanced, greater testing, more immediate testing and more efficient testing for those high contact groups where over the last few months you've seen black and minority ethnic people very, very substantially represented in trades and professions which have been very much exposed to coronavirus. We want to make sure that we help immediately by targeting those groups with extra testing. But I think there are more lessons to be learned for the future And that's why we've set up the commission that we have, and we'll be drawing further conclusions in due course.
Steve Baker.
Wickham will rejoice, Mr. Speaker, but I want to thank the experts who have guided us through this crisis. But I observe that when information is incomplete, when information and knowledge is uncertain, experts disagree with one another. So for the sake of the public and the government, and indeed the experts themselves, will my right honourable friend take a meeting with me and with Professor Roger Coppell, a scholar in the field of expert failure, to discuss how things can be done better in the future?
Prime Minister. Well, I think I know Roger Coppell, and I'd be very interested to hear what he has to say. But I must say, I think that the guidance from our scientists has been incredibly valuable. It has helped us throughout the period. But be in no doubt that the decisions, I'm sure you would understand, the decisions that we have taken, have been decisions that we as government have taken and for which we take full responsibility.
Hi, Bethard.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I've many leisure facilities, large leisure facilities in my constituency that could open now. Gymnasiums, swimming pools, and even an outdoor Lido. But they fear that they've been lumped in with smaller facilities that would find it difficult to open. So they could open now, meeting social distancing regulations, whether it's 2 metres or 1 metre. How long will they have to wait for the task force to enable them to open?
Well, Mr. Speaker, he makes a very powerful point, and I'm sure that kind of point will be echoed in multiple ways around the country today as people look at apparent inconsistencies. All I can say is we will work as fast as we can with him, with the gyms and the swimming pools that he mentions, to try to get them into a state where they can open as fast as possible.
Merriman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The 2-metre social distancing rules has meant that only 15% of tube passengers are able to travel. This will now go up to 25% as the Prime Minister's welcome reduction to 1 metre comes in. But in the event that demand exceeds that 25% supply and the R rate continues to fall and PPE is being used, will the Prime Minister look again at the distancing rules to ensure that our economy and our customers can move around?
Absolutely, Mr. Speaker. Of course, it remains the case that I'm grateful to the guidance is that you should avoid public transport if you can. If you must use it, then you should wear a face covering, and I think that's the right balance at the moment.
Going to Scotland with Kirsten Oswald. Kirsten Oswald.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has just spoken about making difficult judgments. It was his judgment not to sack Dominic Cummings. Can I ask the Prime Minister if his judgment extends to understanding the damage that did to confidence in England's public health messaging and the consequences of that for people's lives? And what's his judgment now of how he can repair that damage?
Mr. Speaker, I must say that in spite of the kind of comment that we've just had, I've been overwhelmingly impressed and fortified by the common sense of the British people who have heard our messages, who have understood what to do. And we'll remind the House of one statistic that shows the power of the community spirit in this country at the moment. 87,000 people have been contacted by NHS Test and Trace and have voluntarily agreed to self-isolate to prevent the transmission of the disease. That's a fantastic thing. The people understand what to do. They're doing it, and with their common sense, the common sense of the British people is going to get us through this.
Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, I spoke to hospitality and tourist businesses in my constituency of Brecon and Radnorshire who have worked extremely hard to implement social distancing measures. They are desperate to get back to work. Can the Prime Minister please continue to work closely with the devolved administration in Wales and ensure that Wales joins up with the rest of the United Kingdom? And in particular, will he please encourage the Welsh Government to scrap the 5-mile rule?
I'm grateful to her for her point, and the House will have heard what I've already said on that matter, but we will continue to work very closely with our colleagues in Wales and across the DAs.
Justin Badders.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now we're moving to 1 metre plus, which, as I understand it, only applies where 2 metres isn't possible What does the Prime Minister say to all those businesses who have expended considerable sums in order to comply with 2 metre guidelines? Do they stick with 2 metres or can they move to 1? And will we see any changes in here?
Well, Mr. Speaker, on the second point, that's of course a matter for yourself, Mr. Speaker, the House authorities to establish how you wish to proceed. Though I would of course encourage as much progress to be made as possible. As for businesses, the guidance is there. It's being published later on today, and I hope they will take advantage of it and that it will make their businesses much more manageable.
Andrew Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome this statement. Harrogate and Knaresborough is in the top 10% of constituencies in this country for the hospitality sector, as measured by the number of people employed by it, almost 9,500 in our case. Many local authorities are looking to use streets and pavements for cafes and other hospitality businesses. That's something I support. Does my right honourable friend agree that councils should be encouraged to use available spaces to help the hospitality sector reopening, whilst of course ensuring social distancing?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable. He's totally right. This is the moment for ingenuity. I hope councils will be broad-minded and creative. There's plenty of space to be found.
We're now going to South Wales with Jessica Morden. Jessica Morden.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welsh councils are reporting a shortfall of around 170 million in the first quarter of this financial year due to the crisis. So it's clear we're going to need the UK government to step up and provide more funding to Welsh government to ensure we don't suffer big cuts in services just when they're needed most. Will the Prime Minister commit to this?
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course it's up to the Welsh Government to spend money properly, but be in no doubt that this Government continues to commit sums to help all the devolved administrations, and as I think our friends from the SNP will know, we've already I think the UK Exchequer has already contributed 3.7 billion extra in Barnett consequentials for Scotland alone. We will continue to support every part. I'm sure that a point is seldom off his lips. We will continue to support every part of the United Kingdom.
Bill Wigan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I got COVID-19 on the same day as my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister. Yesterday, I was given a free test by a company called Pfizer Testing, which is an excellent company run by military veterans. There is a huge number of us who have had this disease. If we can identify us and make sure we are in those statistics, does my right honourable friend agree that we can move faster and more efficiently forward? We've got to get tested.
Absolutely right, Mr. Speaker. I'm delighted to see him looking so well and fit and having staged such a great recovery. But he's completely right. At the moment, one of the difficulties the country faces is that it looks as only about 6 or 7% of the population have actually been exposed to the virus or had the virus, and that, of course, raises questions about the risk of a second spike and the disease coming back. But testing is the answer. He'll be pleased to know that this country is now testing roughly twice as many per head of population as any other European country.
Heading to Yorkshire with Richard Bergen. Richard Bergen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The former Chief Scientific Advisor has said that tens of thousands of lives could have been saved if the government had acted differently. If we'd had the same death rate as South Korea, a country whose population and income is not very different to ours, then we would have had a few hundred deaths, not the many tens of thousands of deaths which we have had. Isn't today's announcement, which is really just about appeasing right-wingers on the Tory backbenches, once again, this government gambling with people's lives?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I understand why the honourable gentleman makes the point that he does. I think he's wrong, and I must say that I welcome, by contrast, the more constructive approach that we've heard from the current Labour front bench.
Brian. I welcome the statement, Mr. Speaker, and its caution, but also its optimism, which I think the country needs badly right now. So many thousands of our constituents should be heading to Somerset this weekend, Mr. Speaker. Maybe the Prime Minister was going as well for the 50th Glastonbury Festival. I just wonder whether the Prime Minister would speak to DCMS to work with the independent festival sector over the course of the summer to see if we can find a way, this thriving industry worth about £2.6 billion to the economy each year, exists in 2021, because right now many of the people working in this sector, they fall foul of the very generous schemes that we've put in place, and for obvious reasons they cannot trade their way out of the situation that they find themselves in.
Well, having performed briefly at Glastonbury myself many years ago, I'm a keen admirer, not to much acclaim, I may say, Mr. Speaker. I'm a keen admirer of that wonderful festival, and indeed of the whole sector that my honourable friend identifies. As I said several times in this statement, we are doing whatever we can to support that very, very valuable sector.
Going to Greater Manchester with Andrew Gwynn. Andrew Gwynn.
Thank you, and can I welcome the Prime Minister's statement, particularly on the support for hospitality, which has been an issue of concern raised by many small businesses in my constituency. But I want to ask him about schools, because he will know that even with 1 metre social distancing, some small Victorian school buildings in my constituency, often with limited outdoor space too, will find it difficult to educate all children returning in phases. So how will he work with those schools, the LEA and the Academy Trust, to ensure that in these circumstances, all children can get the education they deserve and need?
Well, I'm grateful to the honourable gentleman. What we will do between now and the 1st of September, when all schools and all pupils will go back, all colleges will go back, is work with the sector to ensure that we have a clear understanding of how to ensure minimal risk of transmission of the virus. And by then, of course, as the House will understand, our objective is to have got the rate, not just got the rate of transmission down, but got the incidence down so far that we're able really to go forward in a much more normalised way. And on the as for what we can do in the next few weeks, I'm glad he supports schools returning. Those classes that can go back now should go back.
64 and 65 withdrawn, so we go to Robert Goodwill.
This statement will be widely welcomed in Britain's premier resort, Scarborough, which I hope will be very soon, like the Prime Minister today, be firing on all cylinders. One sector that has been disproportionately affected by lockdown are pleasure cruisers and charter angling vessels. Will the Prime Minister assure me that they will not only have COVID-secure guidelines to operate with 1 metre social distancing, but these guidelines will be consistently applied around the country?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. We'll make sure that that very valuable sector of pleasure cruisers and charters is helped very much to become COVID compliant as fast as possible.
We go to Scotland with Dave Dugan. Dave Dugan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has spoken with great pride about the 2.6 million self-employed people supported through COVID by government. But scandalously, his Treasury has excluded a greater number, 3 million self-employed entrepreneurs, taxpayers, owners of small companies, including many in my constituency of Angus, excluded from government help with no income now for 3 months. So can the Prime Minister please offer an urgent financial lifeline to these blameless victims and their families?
Prime Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, we've done a huge amount to support employees, the self-employed across the country, with loans, with grants, with the coronavirus job retention scheme. As I've said, I'm conscious that he makes a fair point, and that there are some people who haven't perhaps got the support that they felt they needed because of the difficulties in identifying what is appropriate and technical difficulties of all kinds. What I can tell him, the single best solution is to get our economy moving cautiously, safely forward, and that's what this package today is intended to do.
Going over to Bob Blackman. Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the statement from the Prime Minister today will be warmly welcomed right across the UK, particularly obviously in London. However, during this lockdown, many of my constituents have followed the advice to work from home where they can to avoid unnecessary travelling. Can my right honourable friend confirm that the advice still is to those constituents to work from home if they can, to cut out unnecessary travel, so that those that have to travel to work can do so in the safest possible manner?
Yes, of course that's right, Mr. Speaker. And as I said earlier on, my honourable friend's completely right. You should avoid public transport if you can. I think that in determining whether you need to go to work, it's important for employers to discuss this with their employees as we go forward. But of course, you should work from home if that is possible.
69 not here. Lucy Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I welcome, on behalf of my constituents in Telford, this fantastic statement. I'm very grateful to the Prime Minister. Will the Prime Minister devote his wonderful energy, enthusiasm and optimism into ensuring we now have a bold, confident recovery plan so we can rebuild our economy, safeguard jobs, opportunities and livelihoods in Telford and across the country?
Well, I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for her description of the plan we're about to be unveiling. In the next few weeks, you will be hearing a lot more about how the UK intends to not just to bounce back, but to bounce forward.
In order to allow the safe exit of honourable members participating in this item of business and the safe arrival of those participating in the next, I am now suspending the House for 3 minutes. Order!